In a bustling town in Ghana, a skilled hunter named Mr. Agyemang began his humble journey. Known for his prowess, he supplied bushmeat to local food sellers, quickly becoming the town's primary source. His reputation for providing the best game meat was unparalleled. As demand soared, Mr. Agyemang faced a pressing dilemma. His supply couldn't keep up with the growing appetite of his customers. Determined not to lose his hard-earned clientele, he sought a solution that would ensure his dominance in the market. His skills had made him a respected figure, but the pressure to maintain this status was immense. The community's reliance on him for their daily meals made him an essential part of the town's life. However, the challenge of meeting the increasing demand weighed heavily on him. He knew he had to find a way to continue providing for his customers without losing them to fellow hunters. His resolve led him down a path that would forever change the course of his life, setting the stage for a story of ambition, power, and the consequences of unchecked desires. In his quest for unparalleled hunting success, Mr. Agyemang ventured into the realm of the mystical. He approached a well-known fetish priest, seeking powers that transcended the natural order. The priest, known for his dealings in the supernatural, listened intently to Mr. Agyemang's plight. Sensing his desperation, the priest offered a solution, a potent concoction that promised to grant Mr. Agyemang extraordinary abilities. With a mixture of herbs and secret ingredients, the priest prepared a ritualistic potion. Mr. Agyemang was instructed to drink and anoint himself with this mystical brew. The ritual was intense, and as he consumed the concoction, Mr. Agyemang felt a surge of power coursing through his veins. The priest assured him that with this newfound power, he could summon any animal at will, simply by calling out its name. Mr. Agyemang was elated, envisioning endless hunts and bountiful catches. He returned home, his mind swirling with the possibilities of his enhanced abilities. However, unbeknownst to him, this power came with a price that would unravel the very fabric of his existence. The dark bargain was struck, and Mr. Agyemang stepped into a world where the lines between the natural and the supernatural blurred. Armed with his new powers, Mr. Agyemang returned to the forests with a confidence that bordered on arrogance. The once challenging hunts became effortless endeavors. With just a whisper of an animal's name, he could bring forth any creature he desired. Antelopes, grass cutters, bison, all fell prey to his enchanting calls. The bushmeat flowed like never before, and Mr. Agyemang's fame spread across neighboring villages and towns. He was no longer just a hunter. He was a legend, a man who spoke to the animals and bent them to his will. His wealth grew exponentially, as did his influence. But with this newfound power and fame came a hardening of heart. Mr. Agyemang showed no mercy in his hunts. Young, old, pregnant, no animal was spared from his relentless pursuit. His fellow hunters, once peers, now looked at him with a mix of envy and suspicion. They couldn't compete with his supernatural abilities, and their livelihood suffered as a result. Mr. Agyemang reveled in his success, oblivious to the growing resentment around him. His connection to nature, once a source of respect and reverence, had become a tool for domination and greed. The forests, which had once been a place of balance and harmony, now echoed with the cries of its fallen inhabitants. Despite his success and the respect he commanded, Mr. Agyemang faced a deeply personal challenge. He had no children. In a community where lineage and offspring were symbols of a man's legacy, this was a source of great distress. He and his wife had yearned for a child for many years, but their hopes had remained unfulfilled. The absence of an heir cast a shadow over Mr. Agyemang's achievements, and whispers of his impotence began to circulate. These whispers turned into mocking jeers, and Mr. Agyemang, once the pride of the village, now faced ridicule and scorn. In desperation, he returned to the fetish priest, seeking a solution to his predicament. The priest, after consulting with the spirits, delivered a prophecy. Mr. Agyemang would have a child, but only one. This child, the priest claimed, was the blessing the gods had bestowed upon him. Overjoyed with the news, Mr. Agyemang felt a renewed sense of hope. The promise of an heir brought a smile to his face, a smile that had been missing amidst the wealth and accolades. He envisioned a future where his child would inherit his legacy, continuing the family name and traditions. The mockery and whispers that had plagued him would now be silenced. Mr. Agyemang shared the news with his wife, and together they rejoiced, their hearts filled with anticipation. The idea of fatherhood ignited in him a newfound purpose. However, the priest's words, shrouded in mystery, left an unspoken question in the air. The lack of clarity about when this child would come and under what circumstances hung over Mr. Agyemang like a shadow. Nonetheless, he clung to the priest's prophecy, allowing it to fuel his dreams and aspirations for the future. Little did he know, this dream would soon turn into a nightmare that would unravel everything he held dear. Trouble brewed when the village chief announced a sacred day dedicated to the gods, a day of rituals and reverence during which no one was to enter the forest. Mr. Agyemang, however, driven by his relentless pursuit of wealth and blinded by his powers, scoffed at the tradition. He saw the sacred day as a mere obstacle to his hunting. His arrogance led him to believe he was above the customs that had governed the village for generations. Disregarding the chief's warning, he ventured into the forest under the cover of night, his heart set on a bountiful hunt. As he moved through the dark, dense woods, his charm at the ready, Mr. Agyemang encountered a sight that would change his life forever: a pregnant chimpanzee. The animal, sensing danger, tried to flee, but Mr. Agyemang, fueled by greed, summoned it back using his supernatural powers. The chimpanzee, understanding its fate, pleaded for its life and that of its unborn child. But Mr. Agyemang, devoid of compassion, silenced its pleas with a single ruthless shot. He returned home victorious, unaware that his actions that night had set in motion a series of events that would lead to his downfall. The sacred laws he had broken and the life he had taken would soon exact a heavy toll. 2 years after the fateful hunt, Mr. Agyemang's wife became pregnant, fulfilling the prophecy of the fetish priest. The village buzzed with the news, and those who had once mocked Mr. Agyemang now watched in awe as the hunter prepared to welcome his long-awaited heir. Expectations and excitement built up as the months passed. Mr. Agyemang's pride swelled. Soon he would have a son to inherit his legacy and silence his detractors once and for all. However, the joyous occasion turned into a horrifying ordeal. When the child was born, it bore an unsettling resemblance to a chimpanzee, covered in hair, with distinct animal-like features. The shock of the child's appearance was too much for Mr. Agyemang's wife. She suffered a heart attack and died, leaving Mr. Agyemang alone with the bizarre manifestation of his past actions. The village recoiled in horror, and the once revered hunter found himself the subject of fear and revulsion. The joyous birth he had envisioned had turned into a nightmare, a stark reminder of the sacred laws he had defied and the innocent life he had cruelly taken. In a fit of rage and confusion, Mr. Agyemang confronted the fetish priest, demanding answers for the grotesque form of his child. The priest, shaken by the news, sought the wisdom of the gods. Through a mystical mirror, a god revealed the harrowing truth to Mr. Agyemang. The child's appearance was a direct consequence of his defiance on the sacred day and the merciless killing of the chimpanzee, which, unbeknownst to him, was a divine creature in disguise. The gods had decided to punish Mr. Agyemang for his arrogance and cruelty by giving him a child that mirrored his actions, a child that was part human, part chimpanzee. The revelation struck Mr. Agyemang like a thunderbolt. His past, marked by ruthless hunting and a blatant disregard for sacred traditions, had come back to haunt him in the most unimaginable way. The god's decree was clear and unyielding. The child was his to care for, and any harm done to it would result in his own demise. Trembling with fear and disbelief, Mr. Agyemang returned home, his mind reeling from the enormity of his fate. The once proud hunter was now bound to a child that was a constant reminder of his transgressions. Mr. Agyemang's life became a shadow of its former glory. The village that once respected and feared him now looked upon him with pity and horror. The child, a living embodiment of his misdeeds, was a source of unending torment. His nights were sleepless, haunted by the memories of the hunt and the pleading eyes of the chimpanzee. The days were no better, filled with the child's cries and the community's scornful whispers. His wealth and influence, which had once seemed unshakable, crumbled under the weight of his guilt and the village's judgment. Mr. Agyemang, who had lived by the gun, was now imprisoned by his own actions. The child, whom he could neither love nor abandon, was a constant reminder of the sacred laws he had so arrogantly defied. As the years passed, Mr. Agyemang's plight worsened. His once bountiful hunts were now a distant memory, replaced by the daily struggle of caring for a child that the entire village shunned. The mocking and derision he had once feared had become his reality, and he found no solace in his once beloved forest. His name, which had been synonymous with strength and skill, was now a byword for tragedy and folly. The loneliness and despair that filled his home were palpable, and the child, a constant reminder of his fall from grace, grew under his care, unaware of the burden it represented. Mr. Agyemang's legacy, once destined to be celebrated, was now tainted with the dark hues of his misjudgment and cruelty. The hunter who had thought himself invincible was brought to his knees, not by a rival or a beast, but by the consequences of his own actions. Pushed to the brink of his endurance, Mr. Agyemang made a harrowing decision. One night, consumed by despair and unable to face the mockery and the burden any longer, he took the life of the innocent child. The act, a desperate attempt to escape his torment, only deepened his misery. The child, who had been his unintended curse, was now gone, but the weight of his action was too heavy to bear. The hunter, once feared and revered, was now a shell of a man, broken and defeated. His home, once a place of pride and joy, was now a tomb of his regrets. The night of the child's death marked the end of Mr. Agyemang's tether to the world he had known. The village, which had once looked up to him, now whispered of the hunter who had fallen so far. Unable to live with the guilt and the relentless torment, Mr. Agyemang chose to end his own life. In the same forest where he had once been a master, he ended his journey. The news of his suicide sent shockwaves through the village. The man who had defied gods and traditions, who had brought about his own ruin, was now gone, leaving behind a legacy of caution and sorrow. The village mourned not for the man he had become, but for the man he could have been. Mr. Agyemang's tragic end served as a stark reminder of the consequences of greed, arrogance, and the disrespect of sacred customs. The hunter, who had sought to conquer nature, was ultimately conquered by the forces of fate and retribution. The story of Mr. Agyemang lives on in the village, passed down as a cautionary tale. It serves as a reminder of the delicate balance between man and nature, and the importance of respecting traditions and the natural order. The hunter's tale is a testament to the fact that our actions, especially those driven by greed and disregard for the sanctity of life, can have far-reaching and devastating consequences. It teaches us that the pursuit of personal gain at the expense of others and sacred customs can lead to irreversible tragedy and sorrow. The legacy of Mr. Agyemang, once a source of pride, is now a lesson in humility and respect for the laws of nature and the gods. This true story, as told on Ananse Web of Tales, serves as a powerful lesson about respecting nature, traditions, and the delicate balance of life. It reminds us that our actions, particularly those driven by greed and a lack of respect for the natural world, can have unforeseen and often tragic consequences. Let this story be a guide for us to live with consideration for the world around us and to honor the traditions and customs that have been passed down through generations. Thank you for joining us on Ananse Web of Tales for the poignant and thought-provoking story of Mr. Agyemang. If this story has moved you, if it has made you reflect on the importance of respect, compassion and tradition, then we invite you to be a part of our community. Please like, share, and most importantly, subscribe to Ananse Web of Tales. Your support helps us bring more such stories to light. Stories that not only entertain, but also impart valuable lessons and a deeper understanding of our actions and their impact. Subscribe now and join us in the journey of exploring more enriching and enlightening tales from the rich tapestry of African folklore. Together, let's keep the tradition of storytelling alive and thriving.